What are some of the things that you've used with your conjugate system to be able to overcome those obstacles that would come with that? For instance, it only works for geared lifters, and I know all the arguments from that, but some of them do though. Some of them do have to be mitigated. Box squats, for instance, have to be mitigated to be able to have any type of carryover. Mm-hmm. So what are the things that you've had to tweak, adjust, and change?
I know the biggest thing, hands down, is just an understanding of where the methodologies and the principles came from, and just like in those original like West Side articles that Louis wrote, there was a million book recommendations, all the books to sell on the website and stuff like that. I mean, I bought all of them at one point or another, and actually like read them and tried to like understand what we're talking about, minus Super Training, which might as well be written in French or something like that. That was the hardest book I've ever read in my life. I made it about a quarter through that like 5 times, I think.
No, the hack for that is you got to read the last part first.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so like it just having an understanding of where it kind of came from kind of lets you be a little more flexible with it, I think. And not a lot of people take the time. Like people, especially nowadays, there used to be a lot more people that were proponents of getting people to actually get into different resources, like go read this book, go read this thing, go. But then I think social media has been kind of a blessing and a curse for stuff like this. It's more like, oh, don't worry, I already have an understanding of this stuff. Just buy my program, buy my coaching, and you won't have to waste the time to do that stuff. And I think that's anybody that's interested in doing this for the long haul, or even interested in it at all, needs to get some, buy some of these fucking textbooks and look through them and stuff for sure. So I don't know if there's any like specific key or anything. I've seen the ways people have like bastardized it, because I mean I've seen just different resources where it's like oh, you don't need speed day as like a raw lifter, so just replace it with like 5x5 like hypertrophy work, something like that. That's a total misunderstanding of the entire system, I think, because the volume on your dynamic effort day is how you progress the entire system over time. So like being able to progress that volume, like quantifiably. You can't do that on your max effort day. You're doing 2 or 3 sets of 1 and then stopping and then going to your assistance work. That's not enough volume to do anything, let alone outside of like straining a little bit, working with how your technique is under heavy loads and stuff like that. So you have to have that volume on dynamic effort day to consistently progress. And I'm a fucking psychopath. I literally write down, even when I used to do a ton of online coaching and stuff, and then I just kind of got away from it just because of stuff like this mostly. Like I actually make a yearly plan for everybody, including myself, where it's not anything I'm sticking to 100%. Yeah. But I could look at it and tell you like what week of the year I'm going to be in what phase of training based on how many competitions that I'm doing. And even that kind of organization is like lost on people nowadays. So being able to plan that stuff out. So again, I don't know if it's any like one weird trick to make it work or anything like that, but it's just having an understanding of how it should be set up and the reason you're doing these things. Like that thing with the dynamic effort work's huge, because I see so many like raw West Side templates that cut that out completely. And it's like, well, what are you doing? Like you're gonna do 5 sets of 5 there instead. Sure, that's the same amount of volume, but you're not moving it as fast. Like that's kind of important too. Like that's, you want to be able to progress that volume over time for sure. That's like a major thing. But, and then it seems like a lot of times too, exactly what you were saying before, sometimes like raw drug-free lifters need to be doing more volume with stuff, and they're trying to like do some bastardized version of just like do a max effort lift and leave. Yeah. And then, just skip everything else, or like the dynamic effort stuff takes them 2.5 hours to get through for some reason. So they just do that and like do the sit-up machine and then leave or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. I think the two biggest things are just like understanding the program and then doing enough work outside of the main lifts to be in a good enough condition to progress that over time, for sure, if that makes any sense. Yeah. If that makes any sense at all.
Well, the speed work thing's always been, or dynamic day, whatever you want to call it, it's always been the interesting one to me, because that's the one that usually gets the second pushback. The first pushback's the box. So that's always the first one. The second one's the dynamic work, and it's always it's always like intrigued me because it's, you know, I'll just come out and say, okay, let's just not call it dynamic work. Let's just call it technical training. You're going to do 8 sets of 2, you know, because after the second, my belief is after the second rep, mentally you're not going to be as sharp. You know, so you could do a set of 5, 3 of them reinforces bad technique. The first 2 reinforce good technique. So 5 sets of 5, you got 10 reps reinforcing good technique. You know, 8 sets of 2, you got 16. You know, so you got more technical reps done in one week than you do in the other, usually at a lighter percentage, which is going to allow you to make the technical adjustments if you do feel that it's a little off. You know, so let's just say the dynamic component doesn't do shit. Well, there's the technical component, and you are a power lifter, right? So learning the movement is kind of like learning how to kick a goal for, you know, a soccer player. You kind of have to do it. So you only think, you know, 1 set of 3, you know, is good, you know, for technical reinforcement. So there's that, you know. Then the conditioning. You know, there's a conditioning component of doing the 8 sets of 2. Anybody that's done it at a minute, even 2 minutes rest, just got that in there. The compensatory acceleration, you know, standing, you know, trying to stand with force, you know, intent. Most beginners don't fucking know. You know, so if dynamic work just physically doesn't work, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's those. Then there's the things that you're talking about is, you know, the phasic structure of the load, you know, the workload that's associated, and it's higher. It's way higher. You know, you take the 8 sets of 2, 10 sets of 2 for whatever you're using, 400, calculate that out. Your workload may be twice as high versus somebody else's, where over a period of time, the higher workload is going to, you know, accumulate. Oh, yeah. And add up. So there's so many reasons why, you see what I'm saying? There's so many reasons why it can be implemented outside of the argument, because they can't say technique doesn't matter, right? Yeah. It's like, well, actually, some do, like strength coaches will, and I can almost buy it, you know, because their football players are not competing in a squat. But that's kind of fucking lazy if you're not going to try to make it at least safer. Yeah, yeah. You know, than a bastardized good morning squat mess.
There's no technique when you're making a tackle out.
Yeah, I know. It's just like that kind of dumb shit, but it happens tremendously.